And welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles from PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me is our two baseball lifers, as I like to refer to them. Locally, Mr. Adam Gladstone, former minor league umpire, former general manager in the minor leagues, also was video review person for Buck Showalter for what, 2 seasons, Adam?
It's felt like two, but it was only one.
It was only one.
Well, we had the postseason. So the postseason, which hasn't happened in a while here, that felt like 2 seasons.
All right. Anyway, you were video assist for Buck Showalter. And with us all also is Rob Nelson, the founder and president of Big League Chew. How are you, Rob Nelson?
Never better. Greetings from Oregon. Thanks for having me.
So we've got Oregon covered. We got Baltimore covered well. We got different age brackets. I'm probably the oldest among us. But let's, I thought I'd have you guys on. And first of all, let me ask Rob how business is with Big League Chew. Has the lockout affected people buying bubble gum yet?
As far as I can tell, hasn't affected it yet. The COVID, fog has affected everybody, as has the snow in Buffalo, where the Big League Chew factory is located. But as I like to say, the bubble hasn't burst. People still love what we do, and I'm still grateful.
Just give a quickie. Tell our viewers tonight, because I've had you on 8-10 times over the years, the last couple of years. When did you start Big League Chew, and how many packs of this gum have you sold so far?
It was daydreaming in the bullpen, summer of '77. We went into production in 1979. So it's 42 years doing Big League Chew. And we're approaching 1 billion pouches. And all I can say is no left-hander has been luckier than I.
Okay. Is somebody going to be designated around the country to be the person that's opening or buying the millionth pouch of gum? And
Actually,
could that be me, or could that be me or Adam?
It could be you guys, but it won't be. And it's the billionth pouch. That's the thing that's astounding.
Yeah,
it's
a billion.
What my hope is, I want to get a fellow named Ron Ream to be up in Cooperstown and just serendipitously go into the Cooperstown diner where they're selling a sleeve of Big League Chew, and then all the bells and whistles go off. Ron Ream was the engineer at Wrigley long ago who figured out how to shred gum that wouldn't stick together. And he's still working with the Big League Chew company. He does my Big League Chew, the personalized pouches. He's approaching 80, and he's got the mind of an 11-year-old, which is one thing we both have in common. So that's my goal. If Ron says he'll do it, that's what I want to do. He's kind of shy, so maybe not. So you guys might still be in the running. So stay near the phone.
But the billionth pack will be open sometime this baseball season, correct?
The hope. With COVID, it may not be till next spring, but we're really close, and it's awfully exciting. I mean, seriously, our first contract was the 3-year deal, and everybody thought, what a fun novelty. And who knew? Novelty makes good. We're really grateful.
Do many days go by where you don't think of Jim Bouton?
I think of Jim Bouton every day. Yeah. Every day. It's a funny thing when one of your best friends is also a celebrity who pitched in the World Series and wrote a book and did so many things. But, the difference between Jim Bouton and me was that I was kind of a dreamer without big league skills. So I went all over the planet to find a team that would allow me to pitch from Africa to Australia to the UK. And Jim just worked his way up the ladder and became the Bulldog. He was just a Yankee star. But for me, he was just a friend. And the big difference.
Everything was going so nicely, Adam, wasn't it?
Wow.
So I'll turn to you, Mr. Gladstone.
Sure.
You probably don't have anything quite as exciting as the billionth pack of your gum or anything like that. But what are you keeping busy with right now?
Well, I'll tell you, and I don't know if you want to get into this, but how Nelly and I met, how Rob Nelson and I met's a pretty good story as well. Just to kind of
I'd save that because that would be a good back and forth.
Okay.
And it's beginning to look like we might have problems with Rob. He froze on us out of nowhere, so we'll see if we can get him back on.
Sure.
And it's ironic. It's ironic because Ross Grimsley is not with us tonight. And Ross gave me the impression that he might be able to get on like 6:10 or something. And I said, I don't want to just pop you on like in the middle of what we're talking about. So if you can't be on by 6, I said, you want me to set the interview for 6:15? And he really didn't respond to that. I said, let's just call it. You'll be back on next week.
Sure.
So it looks like it may just be the two of us for a little while.
Well,
All
luckily
right?
we've never done it before, just you and I together for like
We've
hour or
never
two.
talked baseball at all. Uh, what my purpose to have you two guys on is you've got a lot of experience around the game was to sort of 2 weeks out from spring training with no imminent look to a closure of a deal. Where do you think we are right now? What do you think are the pivotal issues still at hand? And which ones do you think they can knock down pretty easily?
I think that first and foremost, I feel that it's eerily quiet and almost to the point where last week when you knew that both sides, the PA and Major League Baseball, were going to be meeting back-to-back dates, you're like, hey, that's pretty good. Maybe it's going in the right direction. And then you had some reports that came out and said that things are pretty amicable.
Yep.
And it led to some quiet optimism. I think anybody that follows the game knows how important it is for this thing not to drag on. Do I think that spring training games will be pushed back? Yeah, my gut says there are going to be spring training games pushed back. But I feel that the game would be doing a detriment to itself. The Players Association and Major League Baseball would be doing a detriment to themselves if any regular season games get pushed back. And you take a look at the timing of things. The truth is, do we need a 6-week spring training to get guys ready? No, because I'm sure that Ross could attest to this if he was here. Certainly Nelly, but anybody that's been around the game knows that these guys barely take an off season right now as it is. They don't need 6 weeks. They're chomping at the bit. They're going stir crazy. They probably don't need it. Certainly more for the pitchers than it is.
So let's talk about the pitchers. What do they really need though? Because the last thing you want to do is we have a pretty good sense if the pitchers and catchers report February 11th or 12th, that when they start playing the games 10 days later, they pitch an inning, maybe 2,
Right.
but they ramp up progressively over the 5-6 weeks remaining in camp. What do you think they really need? Is it a month?
I think they need, a month, I think 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. But it's funny because, and I'm sure we were going to get into this, the state of the game has changed. We're not looking for those starters to come out on opening day and go 7 innings,
Right,
or 8 innings. It's not happening anymore. You're hoping for 5 or 6 at the most. I read an interesting article today.
or like Rick Sutcliffe on opening day at Camden Yards, just shutout, 9-inning shutout.
Exactly. I mean, those days, unfortunately, are not here anymore. But I think, I read an article today where it was really interesting. There was an agent that was talking about 2 of his free agent pitchers, and he was telling them, you guys, when this thing settles, which most likely won't be February 15th, when this thing settles, you need to be ready to go 3 innings. You're not going to have the ability to just go 1 inning. You're going to have to get up and get down, as Buck like to say, get hot, sit down in between innings and get back up, get hot, and that's important. So I think 4 weeks. Honestly, I think position players need 7 days, 10 days at the most, and that's a lot.
Let me ask you another question that I think is being overlooked. You don't hear much chatter about it. This year, because of the position of the lockout on December 1st, there is just gobs and gobs of players out there that are free agents. And when there are gobs and gobs of free agents, you get good deals, it seems like. How quickly can all these free agents get gobbled up? And does this play in locally to the Orioles, who kind of are going to pick their spots a little bit? They're not going to overpay anybody. This might end up helping them a little bit.
Yeah, I think definitely with the state of the Orioles organization right now, providing opportunity at the
Mhm.
major league level, you might get some guys to fall into their lap that in a normal season wouldn't consider Baltimore. You
Yep.
know, certainly you might get some more with pitchers now because of the extension of the left field wall. You know, but I definitely think that with the way the game's, it's going to be real interesting. It's definitely going to bode well for the ownership and the general managers to get the best deal, because things are going to have to happen quickly, and they're not going to have the luxury of waiting around. And if they do have wait around for something to happen, you might lose out on an opportunity for this year, which doesn't bode well for that player in the future.
Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of one-year contracts, I think. And if you remember when we signed Nelson Cruz, for example,
Oh yeah,
it was because the clock was ticking and sort of they were able to get him on a one-year deal for $8 million.
Yep.
Maybe they can get some pitcher that's a little bit better than they've had over the last few years to go along with Jordan Lyles. And suddenly you got Means, Lyles, and one other guy. And all of a sudden you got a competent starting rotation.
It would be certainly neat for there to be, you know, more than one Jordan Lyles, and certainly you have a John Means. But beyond those two guys, I mean, you have no idea how Dean Kramer is going to come back. You just have no idea what 3, 4, and 5 are going to look like, and 6. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's 6 guys, and you just hope that, look, in addition to guys that can pitch at the major league level, you're hoping to bring in some guys with some experience that these younger guys can relate to and work with.
You know, one of the people I know you're pretty fond of is Brandon Hyde, and I happen to like Hyder a lot. He's had a rough 3 years here. I mean, he knew what he was getting into, but even here's Rob is going to try and come back.
Great.
Let's see if we can get him in here. Let's see. He looks good. He looks good. He's stepping up to the plate. Can you hear us, Rob? You're muted right now. You're muted. You got to click that red button there. You got to click that red button down on your bottom, your left. Let's see if there's any. So I'm unmuting. Rob, you've got to unmute. Down there you go. There you go.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
I'm back. I can barely
All
hear
right.
you. How's this?
All right.
Is that better?
It's not good. It's not good. It's not good picture wise.
Hold on.
The camera needs to go down. There
All
we
right, how's
go.
that?
That's good. Perfect. Perfect. We got you
Okay,
back.
I'm in Medford, Oregon, and they only got electricity about 3 weeks ago.
Rob, we were just talking, we've advanced the conversation to spring training and the length of time that we think they really need to cover spring training. How much time do you think they need to do spring training? Mostly the pitchers.
You know, guys train year round, so I don't think it's going to take too very long at all. I would say 2 weeks and guys could play, particularly when pitchers don't have to go 9 innings anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
exactly.
finishing up Jane Levy's biography again of Sandy
Babe.
Koufax. He's
Yeah.
throwing 9 innings in spring training. I mean, guys probably don't throw 9 innings all spring. Hold
Yeah.
on, let me move around here. I got volume issues.
It's not volume issues. Your camera keeps going up and down.
Okay, my
off.
volume button's on the bottom. How's that? Better?
Okay, that's better, but your camera is perfect right now. You keep going out of the picture.
The camera may be perfect, the subject maybe not so much. So I would say 2 weeks, the guys could pitch in the big leagues, particularly the way they do it now. Most guys would probably go 3, 4 innings, and teams may end up doing that for the whole year.
All right, none of the three of us are baseball insiders. We're lifers. We've got connections in the game. Adam was giving me his opinion. We're of the opinion that they could miss a week of spring training games as long as they get this thing signed, sealed, and delivered, and can get spring training up and running so they don't miss any regular season games. We're still somewhat optimistic of that. How about you, Rob Nelson?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think there may be part of the agreement that the rosters would be a little bit bigger in terms of having a pitching staff, so you don't have anybody who's on overload before the 1st of May. I would think the 1st of May will be back to 25-man roster. But yeah, I think it's very doable. I think where there's a will on both sides, there's going to be a good season.
So to both of you, now that we're catching back up to speed, what are the central issues right now? I was a little disappointed this past week. I understand money's got to come from somewhere to raise the minimum salary. And then I hadn't read all the fine print. Apparently, baseball's making like a 3-year proposal there that they would raise it this year 15,000, and then I think 50 next year and 50 the next year. Doesn't it seem insulting to raise something $15,000 just on the face of it? I mean, why not, if the number needs to be, why not say we'll go up 100 this year and 100 the following year? It just seemed insulting to go. That seemed like such an easy box to check and move on to the next thing.
Well,
Your
I think
thoughts?
the Players Association were the first ones to kind of call BS on that and said that doesn't even really equate to a cost of living or an
Yeah.
inflation increase. And
Right.
they, I think that was something that they just something to throw out there to see what kind of traction they would get to gain knowledge or gain ground somewhere else. But that was kind of poo-pooed right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I can't see where the owners would have thought that proposal would do anything except annoy the players. I'm not a billionaire yet, but I don't understand why the owners don't just, throw an olive branch out and say, you know what, minimum salary is $1 million,
Right.
and take it from there. What would it cost the Major League Baseball owners to say, not only are we going to do $1 million, but we'll throw in some other things. Set the table that sends a statement. We really want to go long term with you guys. And there have been past issues where the players haven't been treated quite fairly. They don't have to say that. If they said, "How about $1 million?" That's a 5-minute phone call. Would you take $1 million? The players would say yes. Okay, what's next? I think set a tone of optimism and fair play and a tone of collaboration rather than collusion.
You and I are
that's
on
what
the
we've got. They've got this massive distrust.
You and I are on the same page there, Rob. I mean, to me, the number was more like 200,000, raising it 200,000, but do something substantial. They must have been looking around at themselves saying, what are they trying to do with this? And the net result was that in 2 years, it is going to be 200,000. It's going to be like 750. So why they wouldn't offer that now, I don't understand.
No, nor do I.
From a positivity standpoint, Adam and Rob, it does seem like the Players Association said, hey, we're going to back off the sanctimonious spot of the 6 years. We're going to let you keep that with free agency. And the players have sort of said, okay, we'll bow and worship the sanctity of the 6-year free agent.
To me, it was amazing that they did it because
I thought they should have fought harder.
I often think, where would the owners be if there was no antitrust exemption? Could they get away with a 6-year thing? And to do 5 years, again, the bottom line is there's a lot of money to be made. And if you want to keep players beyond 5 years, treat them well. When it says free agency, it doesn't mean you can't compete with the other teams. It means that after 5 years, you may have to pony up a little bit more if you really want to keep Cal Ripken or Tony Gwynn or something like that. So I think those opportunities are there. 5 years is a symbolic gesture by the owners that says we want to think long term.
Yeah. Adam, your thoughts?
I was going to say, for me, this plays into, you're kind of seeing it play out with Freddie Freeman a little bit in Atlanta, and to see what happens there, to see how truly Alex Anthopoulos wants to keep an icon there. And if they can't find a way for Freddie Freeman to be that guy that finishes his career in Atlanta after what they just accomplished, it doesn't bode. I mean, look, we know that the state of the game, Nelly and I have talked about this a lot. It's unfortunately this isn't the game the three of us grew up with that we fell in love with and have a passion for. The game has changed, and you feel bad, and you hope. Look, we had the abilities to see Cal wear the Oriole uniform, and that was special. And the chances of that happening, it's making it very difficult with the rules that they're making right now and the way they want to. And manipulate is not the right word, but to tweak them just doesn't bode well for the future of the game, in my opinion.
There was discussion, guys, back at the beginning, and by beginning, I mean back in August, September, when they were both sides were throwing little bombs out to see what might stick against the wall. There was talk about this floor, where a team like the Orioles would have to spend, and the number they threw out, I thought was ridiculously high to initiate that with, but they were throwing out 100 million, that every team would have to spend 100 million. And therefore the Players Association would say, wow, we've got 30 teams spending 100 million minimally. That's going to put more money into the players' salaries. But that really hasn't gained much traction. I thought the number was more like 65 million. Then maybe in 2 more years, it would go to 75. Maybe over a 5-year period, you get up to 100 million. Rob, any thoughts on that? And do you think that's a dead issue right now?
It's hard to say. I don't understand why somebody would want a big league club that doesn't want to compete.
Yeah.
And I guess the biggest question is, are there owners out there who are really going to struggle if, let's say, it was $80 million?
Mm-hmm.
What would their bottom line be? Because nobody knows what the books are, it's hard to tell the owners that you're holding back on us. And the owners are never going to open their books. I mean, you look at the NFL, when the Green Bay Packers were a community-owned team, so their books had to be open. The NFL, other owners said, okay, from now on, you cannot do that. You cannot make your books open. So there will never be a community-owned NFL team because the owners don't want to see, they seem to not want to show what their business is really like. And as long as there's that backdrop, it's hard to ascertain what's a workable number. I really don't know the answer.
Let's do a quick reset. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox, PressBoxOnline.com. With me are Adam Gladstone, who's been a minor league umpire, video assist for the Baltimore Orioles. He's also been an executive in minor league baseball and a general manager for Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic and the Olympics. Correct, Adam?
Correct.
All right. And Rob Nelson is with us, the founder of Big League Chew. Rob, I'm going to ask you to back up just a little tiny bit if you can. Your head is up above the line. We want to see more of your face. There you go. Pretty
better?
good. That's
Okay.
much better. Much better. All right. We're talking about Major League Baseball, the lockout right now. Where do you think they turn next? What is this going to... Adam was talking about how quiet things have been through a lot of this. I think that's a good sign when you don't have a lot of stuff leaked out. But is it just that stuff isn't being leaked out, or there's nothing to leak out right now, Rob?
I'm guessing that things are happening and they don't want to piecemeal it in terms of we're making progress, we're not making progress. I'm enough of an optimist to think that both sides really want to come to a solution rather, that works for everybody. I can't believe that there's just nothing going on. And I hope that that's the case, because let's face it, the fans are of paramount importance. The owners know that, the players know that. There has to be a way to figure this out.
Adam?
Yeah, no, Nelly and I are on the same page. We've had this conversation, and we talked about it briefly while Nelly was getting ready, that in order to continue to protect the game of baseball and to not lose any fans. And I mean, look at the ratings in the 4 football games that we just had, or 6 football games we just had, and the excitement that the NFL has. Baseball can't fall that far behind and lag behind without showing something positive. And I know for me, and I'm probably for Nelly and you, Stan, that I knew mentally that as soon as that last second ticked off the clock of the Super Bowl, the next day it was baseball season.
Yeah.
some way, somehow, you're getting ready for baseball season. And for that not to be the case, look, do I think that this thing is finished in 2 weeks? No, I don't think this thing is finished in 2 weeks. Do I think it's finished in 3 weeks? I hope so. And then, as we talked about, spring training games can be pushed back or lost, but as long as opening day starts on time, I just think it's going to be real difficult for fans to come back. Certainly here in Baltimore, to be upset if there's no baseball, but then also have to buy a ticket for a team that has already come out publicly, basically to say, hey, we're not going to be competitive this year. I just think it's double whammy.
Yeah. It looks like one of the big issues that they're attacking that quality of play and the try and put aside tanking by doing something with the draft. But I really think the floor was the way to ensure the good faith of owners that they're going to put somewhat of a better product out than, say, the Orioles have put out. We understand why they're putting out that product, but it's really not fair for the fan.
Well, the players are pushing for that. The players themselves, as we all know, it makes sense. They want that floor. They want that floor to know that if all these free agents that are going to be out there are going to sign with the club, and if they sign with Baltimore per se, they know at least they're going to be at $100 million, if that's the number. And at least they're going to have the ability to be somewhat competitive. And it forces certainly ownership's hand and the front office's hand to fill that quality, to fill a quality roster the best way that they can. So I get it. I understand that part of it.
Rob, we were talking while you had gotten booted off, we were talking about the glut of free agents that are suddenly, whether it's February 16th, 19th, 24th, when this thing does come to a conclusion, how long is it going to take for teams to gobble up talent? And do some of the have-nots have an opportunity here? Because generally when there is a glut of free agent talent, you get better deals.
You would think so. There's an interesting bit of timing in that when the NFL went to 17 games, the Super Bowl is now in mid-February.
Yep.
So the thing that Adam's talking about, okay, Super Bowl's over, it's time for baseball. So baseball caught a bit of a break because you've got an extra week that normally you wouldn't have had. But I do think that if the money is there, that the Chris Bryants out there are going to still get a great deal, but it may not be as spectacular as once was thought. And I'm okay with that because I think long term, I want to see good players end up with teams that really need good players. But again, we need to know, can the owners afford to do that? And the other big question is, if an owner can afford to do that, maybe they should sell their team, because it seems to me there's no shortage of billionaires out there who want to use it as their own little, I don't know, kind of toy, which is a damn shame because fans are so involved with the thing. But if the money is there, I think the players are going to get a good opportunity. And again, I think the season's going to start on time. It's just a matter of the players just really dedicating themselves to be in great shape, to be ready to go.
Well, talking about billionaires that want to make their teams a little plaything for them, Steve Cohen, the owner of the New York Mets, is hired as his manager, an old acquaintance of ours, Adam. I mean, he's a friend of yours, Adam, and that's Buck Showalter. Has Buck landed in about as good a spot as anybody could who's getting their fifth team to manage in Major League Baseball? He's got a chance to have Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. Granted, a Max Scherzer that's 37, but man, what an opportunity here.
Are you kidding me? He's going to have a potential payroll of $300 million.
Right.
I mean, if you can't win with, Buck Showalter can win with 100 million. I mean, imagine if he actually had, that might be a detriment to him. Now he's going to have to find a way not win with $300 million. Buck and I have had some conversations, and before he got the job, we had a conversation, and I told him, I said, Buck, listen, they need you in that room. They need an adult in that room because that is what has been lacking. And Stan, because you spent a lot of time with them. Nelly certainly knows who Buck is and has been around the game. Buck's going to go in there and it's going to he's going to run it the way that it should be run. He's not going to take advantage of the resources that are presented to him because truthfully, it's going to be one of the first times that he actually has this ability to maybe do some things that he didn't, his hands aren't going to be tied all the time. But obviously I think he and Billy Epler are going to be a really good fit in New York, and Buck is going in there to win. And I think that's all he could ask for. That's certainly all that the Mets organization and Steve Cohen can ask for. And I think it bodes well for how that's going to end at the end of the season for them.
Rob,
I
your
agree.
thoughts?
I agree with that 100%. I think that, there's never been an expression that's the diametric opposite of a perfect storm. So I like to think that Buck's situation is like the perfect rainbow. He's never been a better manager. He's never going to have better players. And he's got a media that is just dying to talk positive about the team. And I think Buck is smart enough and experienced enough. I think he's going to have a monster year. And I think the Mets will too.
A quick question. I think the three of us, all three of us know Dan Duquette pretty well. Does it strike you as interesting that Buck did get this last chance? He's 65 years old. Who knows? He might get a 6 or 7 years from now. But that I get the sense, as much as I appreciate the job that Dan Duquette did, that he's somehow seen as persona non grata. Adam?
I had a little bit of time with Dan with the Olympic team, Israel Olympic team. We were up in Hartford, Connecticut. He came out and spent the day with us, and Dan had been instrumental in Israel baseball back in 2007. And we had a conversation, and I think make no bones about it. Would he love to be back at the major league level? Of course. Do I think, Stan, as you've alluded to, I think that, you look at the state of the game and the type of general managers that are being hired right now. And unfortunately, Dan just doesn't fit the MO of what they're looking for right now.
Yeah, he's a real tweener,
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him involved in different aspects of the professional game, maybe on the Players Association side, maybe on MLB side. You look at what they're doing with guys like Mike Schilt, who actually, which is really interesting to me, Mike Schilt, as we all know, former Cardinals manager, went to go work for Major League Baseball, but then got an opportunity to now work with San Diego as a consultant. And from my understanding, can wear both hats with Major League Baseball and San Diego.
Correct.
So I think it's opening the doors for guys like that. I think it's important also for guys that have been around the game, like, certainly a Dan Duquette, absolutely for a Buck Showalter. Look at the success that the older managers have had, and look at the history. Like, take it in New York, where the 3 guys or the 2 guys that came in before who had no experience running major league clubs, and they got ran out of there after 2 years respectively each. So I think this bodes well for guys. And I think the game needs guys with experience to help work with the younger guys. And there can be a meshing of the two, and you can learn from each other. But I hope that there's still opportunities for older people like us.
Robbie, you got any thoughts on Duquette?
Do I have any thoughts? I don't know him that well. I really don't. We've met a few times. Mostly it's through conversations I've had with Adam. But I absolutely agree about the meshing of the old school thinking and the analytics now. There is middle ground there. You can't go entirely old school. You can't go entirely by the numbers, because there are things that happen, just the intangibles that are out there. I mean, Bill Ripken talks all the time.
You mean like kicking that field goal at the end of the first half yesterday? I mean, boy, that was a classic case of the analytics or something outshining your chance to win, to me.
Yes, I agree. And again, that's exhibit A. You can't go all one or all the other. You have to have some gut feel. You have to have some passion mixed in with the science.
Gladdy?
Well, I was going to say, I'm glad we're having this conversation because, here in Baltimore, if anybody, who's jonesing for baseball read that the Orioles just named their minor league staffs, and in Aberdeen, they just hired a manager that's never been in professional baseball before and was a high school baseball coach. Yes, he's speaks Spanish, which I know is going to be extremely important with the emphasis, but it just goes to show you how, who are those professional players when Nelly, you and I have had this conversation, Stan, when you look down at the end of the bench, and granted, in A ball, it's not that important, but as you're moving up and you get to AA and AAA and certainly to the big leagues, I can't tell you how important it is to look down at the end of the bench and say, all right, that guy's been there. And I'm wondering what those guys in Aberdeen are going to look down at the end of the bench and see, and he might be the best coach there ever is, and say, I wonder how, when he taught social studies in 7th grade, this is going to help us win this baseball game. And I know winning is not the emphasis at the minor league level, but being a professional is learning how to be a professional, learning how to live away from the Latin American countries that you lived in. And I'm just very curious where the Orioles, what their thought process was to have a guy who I hear is a wonderful guy, don't get me wrong, but you have a guy with no professional experience who is really there to help pave the way for these professional baseball players. It was interesting to me.
Yeah. Seems like a good topic to come full circle on as we close out and look at Rob, you may not be that aware. The Orioles, have really started to put some resources into Latin America under Mike Elias. And it's a freedom he's had that Dan Duquette wasn't afforded, because John Angelos has a vastly different vision and understanding and grasp of the way baseball is played today. Your thoughts on the Orioles and the importance that you have to be able, it's like getting into a bar fight with one hand tied behind your back if you can't invest in Latin America.
I think you've got to span the globe, because that's where the game is going. You look how the NBA has done that. I mean, just all over the planet, whether it's Europe, Australia, they go where the athletes are. And if they've got Latino ball players who have the raw talent, I think the key is to find people who can teach them how to be, as Adam said, teach them how to play the professional way, day in, day out, have the skill levels that they have. But I think the key thing in terms of international baseball is you have to have people out there who have a good sense of how to listen to younger players. And I mean, there are just older coaches who just think like older coaches. And, the funny thing is there can be 25 guys who are 25 years old who have more wisdom because they have a bigger sense of how the world works. And you're looking at Jerry Weinstein, who's been able to know everybody for so many years, to be a big league mensch, but also know the game. And as long as you know the game and as long as you respect the players, I think that the cultures can mesh and the game gets better. It's always been that way. It happened way back in the 50s when they brought in black ball players. And just reading the Koufax biography, how the black ball players embraced Sandy Koufax because he was a Jewish guy. And in an odd way, he was going through the same kind of discrimination they did. So as long as there's a sense of team play and collaboration and listen to what's going on, it's almost like between the owners and the players. As long as everybody understands we're in this, it's one big team, that it's going to work well in Baltimore. It's going to work well anywhere, as long as there's a sense that everybody there has something to offer.
Adam, that was a great world answer by Rob Nelson. You and I are both here in Baltimore. You've watched what Kobe Perez is able to do so far. Your thoughts on where the Orioles now, they were pretty upfront, Mike and Kobe. They were very transparent. They said it was going to take a couple of years to build the kind of connections with people and agents down there, but it's really paid off now. Again, that doesn't mean it's paying off in the major leagues for another 3 or 4 years, but there is some light really at the end of the tunnel now. Your thoughts on Kobe Perez and the job he's done?
Well, I'm going to relate it to a personal situation where a good friend of the three of ours, Joe Klein, sent me down to Santo Domingo, to the Dominican Republic, to run a tryout camp for the Atlantic League with Ellie Rodriguez. And we came away from this 3-day camp, and I signed a pitcher who 2 years prior to coming in this tryout camp threw a no-hitter in the big leagues. And I give that example because if I was smart enough to sign a guy that had pitched in the big leagues and threw a no-hitter, then certainly Kobe Perez and the Orioles organization, who are putting time and effort and resources into growing their Latin American presence, growing their academy, really putting an emphasis on that because that's where the talent is. then they're going to be successful because they're doing it. They haven't been doing it up until 3 years ago.
Okay. I mentioned that would be a good signing off period, a point, but I do want to just wrap back around. Let's each of us state, when do you think, Adam, the papers signed and they announced that, hey, the lockout is over and people can start signing? When do you think that is?
I think we're probably looking, for me, it's no earlier than March 1st.
March 1st. Rob, you optimistic that it could be a little sooner than that? Because again, you don't just have to open up spring training. You got to sign these guys and get them, situated. What do you think?
I think just because it's a complete sentence, March 4th is the day it should be. Baseball should March 4th on that day. So I'm going with that. When that happens, I want the call from you out here in Oregon and say, Nelly, you were right. I would hope that it would be in February, but I'm leaning more towards Adam's thing. I think it's going to be March. Having said that, I still think opening day is going to happen very close to when it was supposed to happen.
All right. I don't know why I'm optimistic. I think it might be the quiet, and that now that they've cut to the chase, they don't seem to be all that far apart anymore. Once the players have backed off trying to get the arbitration thing knocked, the free agency knocked from 6 years to 5 years. I'm going to say the February 21st or 22nd is the day that they sort of come to the conclusion.
That would be awesome.
Unlock the doors. All right, guys, I really appreciate it. Again, Rob Nelson, the president of Big League Chew. They're about to sell their billionth pack of gum within the next 6 to 9 months or so. Congratulations on that, Rob, and thanks for doing this with me. We'll get doing it again some other time. And Adam Gladstone, I love you, brother.
Thank you. Great to see you guys.
All right.
Hey, this is awesome. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. We'll be back Thursday night, Gary Stein and I, with Jeff Zreback of The Athletic, talking Baltimore Ravens football. Till then, we'll see you then.